Welcome to Pittsburgh Earth Days, The Dirt Podcast, featuring Grant Ervin, live from the Point Park University Center for Media Innovation. Here is your host, Grant Ervin.
Hello, and welcome to the latest installment of the Dirt Podcast. I'm your host, Grant Ervin from S&B USA, coming to you live, well, almost live, from the Center for Media Innovation at Point Park University. Today we have a really great episode that we're super excited to talk about a transformational project here in Pittsburgh known as Frankie Pace Park, aka or also known as the CAP, which has been a transformational project here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, that has really recreated a connection between downtown Pittsburgh and the Lower Hill District. And it's been a seminal effort on the part of community and government and a number of individuals. And we have two of the individuals that are responsible for that project here with us today to share their experiences. And so we're super excited to have them here in studio and get the dirt on the Frankie Pace Park project. Today we have Amir Rashidd, community artist and activist, coming with us, as well as Chuck Grabner, senior project manager with the B Fay Company. Chuck, Amir, how are you guys doing today?
Hey, I woke up and got up.
Pretty good. It's a Friday. It's a Friday. That's a good way to start. A friend of mine always starts out, I was like, how you doing? He's like, I'm upright.
That's right.
That's a good way to be.
No, the groundhog is not your mailman.
That's right. Amir, I was going to start with you, and maybe just to get a little bit of background on your personal history and the role of a community activist and artist, and how you came to the CAP project. But maybe just a little bit first about yourself and some of your origins in community and public art.
Well, I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio, and I come to Pittsburgh the first time in 1966 at the opening of the Halfway Arts Gallery on Center Avenue, and I was representing the poets and playwrights from Cleveland, and I grew up in a totally jazz environment because my father's a drummer, and there was so much music in Pittsburgh. I mean, there's so much live music. I mean, you could stand out on the street and just hear the music coming out of all the different clubs. You know, you could hear John Coltrane, and you could go down to Homewood and hear Muddy Waters. And, you know, it was like that environment, and that's what kept bringing me back to Pittsburgh. And it was $6.75 round trip on the Greyhound bus. You know, and so that's what got me into Pittsburgh, and I moved to Pittsburgh as a resident in 1976.
Okay.
And I collided with some other artists, and they were building an institute called the Institute of Creative Arts on Dinwiddie Street, you know. So I joined in and put my input in with that, you know, and I got to doing art, and you know, and I left Pittsburgh in '84 and went back to Bridgeport, Connecticut for a while, and I come back in 2003 after I retired. The Board of Education in Bridgeport, Connecticut hired artists as culture workers.
Okay.
You know, so we work with special education kids, you know. And so I come here in 2003 and got re-involved in the community. I do urban farming for the Community Empowerment Association, so I have a farm across from Westinghouse High School. I grow everything that the law allows. And so I went to there was a call for artists. And I think it was Renee Prachaki, a call for artists, and I went to that meeting, and I got involved in the CAP project, you know. And when we decided what we was going to do, it was on, you know, and I wanted to make sure that there was involvement in the park for children, you know, and so that's why we have the little storytelling area with the little chime to play and the cajoons, the instruments, and the greenery. What we had suggested that where all the flowers are, that at some point in the future we could have local schools that would bring the students down and have student plant, you know, it'd be part of an agricultural project, for the elementary school, you know, and that's how I got involved, and that's what I do, and I love the park. It was wonderful. You did a great job. You know, yeah, pat yourself on your back, but don't break your arm.
It wasn't just me. We had a heck of a team.
Oh yeah, you got to have a team. It takes teamwork.
Yeah, it's definitely not just me.
We're gonna hit into that teamwork aspect of it, but maybe Chuck, tell a little bit about your backstory and how you came to the Frankie Pace Park project.
Yeah, so born in Columbus, Ohio. Go Bucks.
I can't believe we got two
Buckeyes.
Two Buckeyes in the studio. We let this happen, Wade.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know. Something's wrong.
I'm married to a Pittsburgh native.
Okay,
so,
all right.
so
That saves you.
I started W&J in 2006.
Go Presidents.
And, go Presidents. And met my wife there, and around the same time, I started interning at Joseph B Fay. So whether I came here for work or her, it's a chicken before the egg. We always argue about that. But I finished out I graduated. I was a couple summer internships here at Fay, 2009, and then I was full time in 11. I traveled a good bit on projects. Worked up probably in the Northeast near you, where I did a job up in Boston, in the Mid-Atlantic, and then on a lot of bridge demolition. Then about 5-6 years ago, started getting into bridge reconstruction projects. And this was my second bridge reconstruction project here, and I was assigned the job. It was really exciting, high profile, from all aspects, from a structure standpoint, from a Pittsburgh joining of the Hill District to downtown. That was a big deal to us, and it's definitely been the pinnacle of my career so far as being a part of one singular project.
That's exciting. Maybe for a second, for audiences, talk a little bit, Chuck, first about the Joseph B Fay Company, and we have to give a quick shout out for our team at S&B USA as part of the parent company. But Fay, it's a thing that we see along our highways and our rivers. But talk a little bit about the company.
So Fay was founded in 1947. When I came here, it was in the hands of the third generation, brothers Bob and Sean. At that point, they had sold the company, and fast forward to just a few years ago, S&B purchased the company as a parent. But Fay started with a lot of locally here. We do Duquesne light work. That's how we started in 1947. Mm-hmm. We still have many crews working within the city. And we've been working on PennDOT jobs for many years here in District 11. District 11 was actually the managing partner of the job from the inspection constructability side. But this was a unique job. Even as many projects as Fay has done, this was definitely a unique job. Mm-hmm. This is one of a kind for us.
That's exciting.
At Fay.
That's exciting. Amir, being and living in the Hill, and the experience you talked about coming to Pittsburgh in 1966, the resonance of the cultural epicenter that the Hill District was, and you lived through kind of that period where the community was physically severed from its origins to the central business district in downtown, and you have the civic arena that was there through a lot of that period of time. Talk about kind of that separation from a physical standpoint, but then also what does it mean for the community in terms of that physical connection being built back? What was kind of that experience?
Well, the Hill was a nexus of creativity. I met at that meeting at the halfway house school. I met some of the most powerful artists I think that I had met in my life at that time. Mm-hmm. I met an artist who Carl Smith was called Dingbat.
Okay.
He was a nail sculptor. He made three-dimensional pieces out of what's called a coffee tax. If you go to the Bidwell Center
over in Manchester.
Yeah. There's a great big continent of Africa made out of tax.
Wow.
And you go look at that. It's like awesome to see, And so I met the saxophone player, Kenny Fisher, and the lower hill was called Little Haiti.
Okay.
That was the acronym. It was called Little Haiti because of the Africanness and the ways of the people. And downtown was, the hill went all the way downtown. I mean, it all the way
It just blended together.
all the way downtown.
Yeah.
It's vernacular.
It doesn't come as natural for us, but yeah.
Yes, yeah.
As Buckeyes, it doesn't come as natural.
Yes,
right.
So I was just totally fascinated, and one of the things that made it such a great place for music is because where the three rivers come together, and back in the 1800s when the river boats.
Yep.
And there was there was a black man downtown who had a music shop. So musicians would come in and whistle their tune, and he would write it down. Just whistle it, and he would write it down for you. And Frankie Pace's father, her husband, Charles F. Pace, wrote some of the greatest gospels that we know, the lyrics. In fact, I have a bunch of his copies because you could go in and buy the music, or the sheet music. She had a shop down just below Kirkpatrick on Center Avenue.
Okay.
That was Frankie Pace's shop. I met her a few times, and so Joshua Fit, the Battle of Jericho. He wrote the lyrics to that song, and every wrong goes higher, higher. So that's one thing of Frankie Pace. So they had a music shop.
Okay.
And he sold music. He wrote music and wrote music for the churches and stuff. And so that was one of the things. And so Frankie Pace, she was like an activist.
Yep.
I mean, she was a Fannie Lou Hamer of Pittsburgh.
Of Pittsburgh, right.
And so that was one of the things. It was just so much art and so much creativity. It was just a cultural nexus. And I felt, I was at home.
Yeah. It's amazing too, so that physical connection and what you guys have been able to create and the teams around you is almost embodying that there's the physical bridge, but there's also that cultural and community bridge is being rebuilt in that physical space to recreate some of those things, right?
Yeah. One of the things we want to do at the park down there is a place to have music, bandstand to come out. We can have live music, we can have live outside activities, and it's a nice place to bring children to, because my mission statement is we must help the children for they have a long way to go.
Right.
We must help the elders for they have come a long way. And we must help all those in between for they are doing the work.
Wow.
And that's what we have to do.
And that space makes that happen. I want to dig into the process for both of you. Chuck, this is a bridge. In its basic form. From a construction standpoint and engineering standpoint, can you talk a little bit about the structure and what it is for our audience? What went into building that connection?
So just with what Amir was saying, with your first time here, you went to Center Avenue. That's where Frankie Pace. There's that Center Avenue connection. Well, that's the south corner of the 3-acre park. Is Center Avenue. And then speaking about the park itself, I'm a civil engineer by profession or trade. That's civil engineering and construction. That's what I do. And when we built the bridge, that's how I look at it. But then I've got 3 baby boys, and when they run up on the cap, they're beating the chimes, they're banging the drums. They love it. They're running wild. They love it up there. So it's interesting to see how that 3.5 years ago, when we started building this job, I didn't see that from my perspective. But from a bridge standpoint, and it's a big structure.
Yeah.
You don't really even know you're on a bridge when you stand up top. Unless you look north or south towards the Liberty tunnels, you have no idea there's an interstate that's 8 lanes below you. You got four lanes of mainline 579. You got 4 on and off ramps. But the structure is substantial. We had 42 caissons that were 42-inch in diameter, 40 feet deep, and then you've got up top we had micro piles. We had 232 micro piles. So there's on the sides, flanking 579. There's 15,000 lineal feet of micro pile below the structure to hold it up.
Wow.
And
for perspective too, just sorry to interrupt. A normal quote unquote bridge is how big in perspective? A normal interstate bridge.
And it can vary, whether it's 2 lanes, it can be 40 feet wide, or up to 8 lanes. You'll see over 100 feet wide. I mean, this bridge is 250 feet wide. Yeah, it changes because the skew between Webster and Center Avenue Bridge, but it's a wide structure.
Right.
The support I was talking about with the caissons and the micropiles, everything is built up out of the ground, and it's to support all this weight, and just the box beams alone, when we brought those in, I mean, it's 20 million pounds of just concrete box beams, not even talking about earth, sidewalk, grass. 20 million pounds of beams hauled in by trailer, by truck, that we had to set with a crane. So, the structure is very stout, and it had to be built that way in order to get to the top and incorporate all these things that Amir, speaks of, and how much that means to the community.
That's amazing.
You had to take that tunnel out too. Remember the tunnel?
Yeah, the little
tunnel with the artwork on the inside. I used to love that tunnel. Yeah.
The one that you would walk through with the Cantini sculpture. Was that right?
Yeah.
The city saved all that.
They saved
artwork.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All that they took that out prior to us starting the job, and that's where our job trailer is at, over on that corner.
I had suggested that at one point that we could put that artwork on a wall above ground. But maybe on the next part, across the street, we might be able to do that, because that's nice. That was nice work.
It was.
Yeah, and it was something just to walk through and look, admire.
And that is, I think one of the things too, the Cantini sculpture, but also and I want you to both talk about this, is the experience, particularly for the a pedestrian and at the individual scale. We took something that was auto-centric and is now built for the human scale. Maybe if you could talk a little bit about the public art installation, and then the process for you to create that. Like, what went into that for you?
That right there at Center, when you go all the way down, that's a little park right there. Well, I thought that's the park that they was talking about. They was going to make. I thought he was going to transfer from that little park, little bitty park there.
A little different.
Different scale.
So I went there thinking that was the place. I went there one night, one evening, and I just laid down on the ground to look up, just to think about what to be. And then he told me it was up the street. It is up the street. So then I went there, and thought about it and looked at it, and I liked it to. You know the term doublement?
No, I'm not familiar.
That's the French term, meaning to double yourself.
Okay.
Well, they had always wondered how the ancient Commetans or the Egyptians could know what they built looked like from the air. They didn't have airplanes. So they said that some of the priests were able to double themselves to rise above to look down, and to be in more than one place at one time, because they said Buddha could do it. He was over there and he was over there, so... I wanted to try to visualize what it would look like from the sky.
Okay.
So one of the designs we put in there, you familiar with the Sankofa bird?
Yeah.
Well, the Sankofa bird is a bird that's walking forward, but he's looking backwards with a seed in his mouth. And the philosophy is you go forward, but you remember where you came from and bring back from what you came. So for the treescape, when a tree changed colors in the spring and the fall, from the height you could see the colors are the shape of the Sankofa bird.
Interesting.
That's the red sidewalk.
Yeah, and the red sidewalk. And so one of those things we wanted to incorporate in was the whole cultural aesthetic, the whole spiritual aesthetic. We was going to use like Mama Wata. Mama Wata represents the ocean, or either Yemaya, or Yemayo as it's called. She's called is among the Akan is the spiritual god that's the owner of the oceans.
Okay.
And it is said that it was her spirit, you understand, that protected our ancestors when they were brought over in the ships.
Okay.
So that we wanted to incorporate that cultural aspect into the park,
Interesting.
So then when we have meetings and with the young folks,
a little difficult to see, but this is the red sidewalk. You can't see the head up in the corner. that Amir was speaking to, but the head is this way of the bird, and if you were aerial, it would.
Yeah.
It's what you described.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, how did you gain that perspective from up above? Like, did you go on top of the steel building, or could you notice it from high up on Center Avenue? Like, what gave you that perspective?
The perspective was because of the high rise, the Caleb Ervin's high rise.
Okay.
Okay, they can look out the window and look down on the top
whole
of-
Chatham Center can
Yeah, the
see.
Chatham Center across the street.
Yeah.
They can look and see, they can see that. So it was also to give them that visualization,
Wow.
To incorporate,
To look down on top of the site.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And Chuck, like, now you guys worked then from the bottom up, right? So talk about that process. I mean, the engineering that was required to put in very heavy infrastructure. What were some of the challenges there from a physical aspect to start to create that from the ground up?
So from an engineering standpoint, the designers chosen were HDR. They were the lead design. And they were the structure folks, and then LaQuatra and Bonchi, they were the architects of record working for HDR. They did a great job, and then they gave it to us. But the challenges physically was access. I mean, everything we did when we were building those caissons and lifting in 50-foot rebar cages, on ramp D as you're heading northbound, coming out of Liberty Tunnel. Coming northbound, you got 2 lanes of 579 traffic. Everything was worked off that 24-foot wide ramp for the first 4 or 5 months to build 3 of the 4 main caps. So if we had to lift the cage in that area, we had an excavator, and then we had a crane, a pump truck, and a drill rig all lined up. And then as we're swinging that cage over, we bring down a 53-foot flat deck trailer, and we got to stop traffic in both directions just to be able to swing this thing over safely in case of a failure, which nothing ever like that happened, but you have to be cautious with the public. So we would
Certainly.
run 5-minute paces just to be able to set a cage or do a pour or get equipment in and out down at, not even talking about up on top in the city. This is on the interstate level. And then once we got above that, things changed to where now we had to make sure everybody come around in the city.
So this is literally like a symphony and a ballet, all at the same time with very heavy equipment.
Construction folks wouldn't be good at the ballet thing, but we do something like that.
And then you had to leave the space out for the cap project didn't own that little space that
Right. We called that the dead area. That was it was paved.
they're going to build a restaurant there.
I think so.
Yeah,
I
they
think
said
that was the
they're gonna build a
plans
restaurant.
up top.
What was the a key component of this is the community, right? And can you guys talk about the community process, both in terms of the public art and the creative vision that you were able to create? Like, how did the community influence that? And then also on like the construction side, like the engagement of the community from anything from workforce development to sequencing and, just keeping people posted from a safety standpoint. What's that engagement process like, and how important is that?
Well, I think it's important that the community was involved, to let the community know that it was going to be a park, and it was going to be a park that they would have access to. It wouldn't be a park downtown where this is a park. This is a park. This is not separate from the hill. This is part of the hill.
Yeah.
The lower hill, and it's a place where the community can come they can have picnics. They can have events. It's a space. It's an outside space, and it's a safe space. That was emphasized, that it was a safe space, and it was a gathering place, for the community, essentially.
A physical confluence.
Yeah, and so folks could come down and enjoy themselves and bring their kids down. I suggested that when I was in Memphis, at the National Civil Rights Museum, because we wanted it to be a museum, somebody way to talk about the history or the story, of the Hill. And I was in Memphis at the National Civil Rights Museum.
Okay.
And they have the bus, one of the buses from back in the day when they were bus boycotting,
Right.
that you would get on the bus. So when you get on the bus, there's a little sign that says when you get on the bus, it activates a recording. Well, I didn't pay no attention to that. I just got on the bus because I was looking at it. They had all the advertisement, all the old pictures. I'm getting on the bus, and they had a mannequin bus driver. So I got on the bus. I sat on the first seat, and the bus driver said, the voice of the bus driver said, "Nigga, go to the back." I'm like,
Wow.
but it was to give you an experience of what it was like.
Yeah.
You know. So I'm looking around. I realized that, you know, I was saying, who said that the bus driver?
Right.
So
Here's a recording.
It's a recording
Oh.
coming from the bus driver,
Wow.
you know, to tell you, can't ask to the back of the bus, you know.
Right.
So it would give you that reality.
Wow.
So I wanted to put that kind of reality in
Yeah.
that park. So I had suggested that we get an old Pittsburgh bus. And you get on the bus, but what would have at the advertisements on the bus would be all of the history, Frankie Pace, all the history of the hill, and you get on a bus and you pay a nickel to get in. It was also a fundraiser. And then you get on, put a nickel or dime in it on the bus, and then sit on the bus, you understand? And that the bus would ride around the park.
I see.
You know, the bus would just one bus just ride around the park. It could have been on a rail, you know,
Yeah.
like the old, actually it was going to be a trolley and just ride around the park, you know. But I think that would be a little bit more expensive than they
Oh, they have
had
the BRT that's
but
coming on the way,
money
so
to do,
maybe
you
that's
know, yeah.
that's part of incorporating that.
But we wanted to make sure that that it had historically, because are you familiar with Sun Ra?
I'm not.
Sun Ra is a jazz musician. He's the first one to electrify the piano.
Okay.
And the second person to electrify the piano was a piano player from Pittsburgh named Joe Westre. And Joe Westre had a camp. Not only was he a great jazz musician, but he also had a summer camp, you understand, for young boys every summer, you know.
Yep.
Okay. But Sun Ra says, in terms of, he said, his story makes a mis-story of our story. You know, so that's why I said I'm an Arsturian. You know.
And so the park now encapsulates that history and brings it forward,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And Chuck, on your side, like what is that engagement process like? Again, with like safety, with
That
all-
engagement process is a little different than Amir's. It's keeping people safe and happy with traffic, because we affected a lot of people for 30 months. We started in July of 19, and the job wrapped up on time in November of 21.
And you also had to deal with navigate the pandemic as well, right?
Yeah, that was another. Yeah, we went
Yes.
through that and still never had a delay. We finished on time, which was, for the public perspective, how many jobs have we all been around that just seem to drag on and delay after delay? And, when we talk about public involvement, it's safety, because we're working adjacent over the interstate. And then when we came up top, we were working around pedestrians, and a lot of folks are walking in the U.S. Steel Tower every single day. I mean, it's the biggest building in Pittsburgh, and it's right next to our project. You get it with a baseball. So keeping those people, safe and out of the project, keeping it on time. And we had traffic movements that were mainly at night. When we had to do the work, I was mentioning that briefly early, Grant, is, we had to tie into Pittsburgh Sanitary for some features up on the park. And the intersection of Washington Place and Center, we were in the middle, 15 feet down, in the middle of winter on night shift. So we tried to make it easier for folks, to avoid those situations during high traffic times, and keeping the public safe. And we kept them safe, and we finished when everybody we told we were going to finish, and we did some public outreach in the beginning, and got a lot of calls. We talked about the Chatham Center. They get to look at the bird, but I got a lot of calls when we were on night shift, and they asked me to adjust our light towers, that were shining. We were just doing the
Trying
work,
to get some
but
sleep here.
They were shining up into the apartment building, so now they don't have to make those calls to me. They can go out and look at the peaceful birds. So a little different from your side.
One of the things I'm interested in hearing you guys express or talk about is that these community bridges, we'll call them, What's really interesting about this project is it's recreating this connection, and we talk a lot about this in the transportation and community planning and sustainability space of like how do you start to heal physically and from an infrastructure standpoint divides that were created in the mid-20th century transportation system. So like this project here in Pittsburgh, there's similar ones probably in Columbus or Syracuse, New York, or Baltimore, Maryland. And so like what are some of the takeaways that you guys have in terms of how do you do more of these? Like how do we kind of rebuild the transportation system to build community bridges as well as the physical bridges? I don't know any thoughts that you guys have on that.
Well, and just again, speaking what was there before from my end when we started, people crossed. I mean, there were sidewalks on Webster and Center Avenue bridges, but it was very business-like. It was back and forth, 9 a.m., back and forth at 5 p.m. And by the end, it seemed like a much more casual, in general, it was a calmer area and not as business-like. And it is, from a community standpoint, and Amir will speak to that, I'm sure, but it is very important. And I think in the end, it comes down to folks like Amir that are stepping up to the plate and making their pitch, and from there it becomes a funding, a funding hurdle, which from this standpoint on this project, and I know you were involved yourself early on, but there was funding from a lot of sources, federal grant, state, local. The SCA brought in a lot of different sources to come up with the funding. So that's from a cradle to grave standpoint. That's definitely where it starts is with a group that Amir's involved in, and then taking it.
Kind of, it requires a community barn raising almost. Like you can't really underscore like the role of folks like Mary Quintoro and Doug Straley at the SEA and elected officials, like Congressman Doyle or Representative Wheatley or Councilman Lavelle in the Hill District, and like all the different roles that they played to keep the conversation flowing.
Yeah, it was it was almost like it was like a call. And everyone answered the call.
Yeah,
and if you made the call and you wanted to, he would stand up to the call. And surprisingly enough, there was a lot of folks that stood up for that, and to make that involvement, because it's a place that you're talking about how casual it is. It's a place where folks can come and sit down and have lunch
all day.
Yeah, because there's a lot of workspace around there. Still a lot of folks come, and they come there to sit down. I've passed by, I've seen a whole bunch of folks sitting there just having lunch.
Yeah,
and it's nice.
How does that make you guys feel? Just from like your personal standpoint, when you see somebody sitting there having lunch in a place that you had a really critical role in helping to make that happen. Or just seeing, like you were talking about your kids, going banging on the drums and things like the cajoons. Yeah. I mean, what's that feel like?
It's a different feeling. I mean, I've been in a lot of projects with taking down bridges, done a lot of bridge demolition, and you don't ever get to see what you did because next time you drive through, it's just gone. Right. And then the other bridge reconstruction projects or retaining walls or whatever we rebuild, it serves its purpose, and that's for public transportation, whether it's been cars or rails or waterway,
getting from A to B.
It's business. It's business. This project, it's really not business in the end.
Yeah,
and it's a different type of feeling to be able to bring someone to the park and show them that you were a very, very small part of in the large picture. It's not. I don't have that same ability on the other projects that I've been involved with over the last decade.
That's interesting. Amir?
In my work experience in my life, I worked on the railroad. I worked on the Penn Central Railroad, and I was a brick cleaner. And Pittsburgh was you could get a job as a brick cleaner, and it was an amazing because you was all over the community, and it was just the workers, and they was tearing down the city. And one of my jobs was to go to we want to tear down the building. I went to the building. Me and another artist named Yoruba Batonga, we would take the windows out. Before they dropped the crane, we would take the windows out, and we also might find any no post molding and old record albums. You never know what you find in an old house, and so that was one of the things that I was finding all this information. I started jumping in the dumpsters.
Okay.
And I went. There was a place up on Wiley Avenue. It was a bar called a Crazy Baby.
Okay.
And across the street was a jitney station. And so we wanted to go in the apartment upstairs to see because we was finding old furniture to resell, And I was trying to go down in the basement, and someone had boarded the basement up to make it a closet, so you couldn't go down in the basement from inside the house.
Right.
So there was this great big purple trunk, and I opened up the trunk, and when I opened it up, there was an 8x10 glossy of Max Roach, the drummer.
Okay.
Your promotional picture. So I closed the box and took it home. And turns out Kenny Clark, who was the father of modern drumming, was from Pittsburgh. And he had come in 1951 to his brother's house, who lived there, and left his trunk that he brought back from Paris. So I had a trunk. So Connie Portis called me and said, "Amir, where are you?" I said, "Well, I'm at home." She said, "Well, you're supposed to be at the radio station with an interview with Kenny Clark." So I had his whole trunk. So I took some of the stuff out the trunk and took it with him. It was when Pitt was having the 1977 jazz seminar.
Okay.
And I got a chance because my daddy was a drummer, so Kenny Clark was a household name when I was a kid, know. And so I had this information about Kenny Clark, And so it was all this kind of community information that that was right there and from working, And so that was one of the things that made me feel a really attached to Pittsburgh was the music and the people in the community,
right?
Because people in the community say, "Hey, baby, how you doing?" Everybody, baby, in Pittsburgh.
Baby or Hun? Hun's the other one. Like,
yeah,
hey,
Hun's the other one, And so Pittsburgh is one of the friendliest places that I've lived, and Pittsburgh only have two directions, up and down.
Interesting. Maybe just to start to bring this home a little bit, we're up against time. Hearing these stories from the two of you, I'm going to make an assumption, a guess that this project has been some of the most seminal work that you've done in your art career or your engineering career, and it's amazing to me to kind of fuse the two together and hearing them at the same time. One of the things I'd love to maybe hear from both of you is not just that this is a seminal project for you personally, but like, how do you carry this forward? Like, how do other cities, other construction companies, other public art projects do projects with purpose like this? Like, what's some of your takeaways on that in terms of building something with purpose? That's a deep question, so I want to.
Well, I look at it as my own personal artwork because I sculpt and I paint.
Right, multimedia. You're doing a lot of different mediums.
And so I look at it like this was a giant sculptor. This was one great big poem. One great big expression. You understand that we wanted to connect with the people.
Yep.
And everything I think must connect. With the people, because it's about us.
It's about us. That's right. Chuck, how about you?
Yeah, I don't consider myself an artist. I'm not very good at art, but I'm an
concrete is your
what you do is an art.
A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Pythagorean theorem. That's just what it is. So a lot of what I see here is we built a big structure, and luckily I was able to be a part of something that was more than just a structure. This job took the Swiss Army knife of construction abilities. It wasn't just a park. It wasn't just grass. It was a sculpture joining two pieces of land, and it was a engineering feat to build that structure in the middle of the city. And I think this job here will be, this project, this park will be a big deal to Pittsburgh, and other communities are going to want to follow. It's easy. The proof is in the pudding. You're gonna set the stage for, I think, other CAP projects to follow. And there were some before this, but I think this is definitely
This one's special.
That's something that's going to happen across the street too. We're working on that's going to do. They're going to build a park across the street.
That's right.
They're building this, but they're also going to do a walkthrough. And it'll probably be a walkthrough artists, and it'd be like a living gallery.
Yeah. Yeah, because this is really about just creating that meandering path all the way back down to the water, right?
Yeah.
Like going back to the music that you were talking about, starting from probably what was the Mon Wharf, and people coming back and creating those musical moments. This starts to recreate that connection.
Yes, and the gables down there with the wire and the stones for the water to flow at because it's designed for the
gabion
water.
baskets. That's my favorite thing on the project.
The
gabion baskets. They're stainless baskets.
Yeah.
I love that. That's neat.
Yeah.
If you look at them, they're all different.
Yeah. Okay.
Because all my guys, they built them. They all had a different mind.
Okay.
Some of them appear sloppy to others, but then some are very straight, and so there's that. To me, was really, really neat to see,
because they were able to
half
make
a
a
dozen
contribution.
different folks building those gabion baskets, and stacking that rock in a different manner. So there is some more to that too.
Everybody has their own medium, and this bridge or this park has been a palette for Pittsburgh.
It's like they say that King Solomon was an artist, and local artists challenged him to a contest. So the artist he painted some flowers, and King Solomon painted some curtains.
Okay.
So everybody was going up to the flowers. They looked so really trying to smell the flowers. You understand? So they were just sitting there looking at King Solomon's curtains. And he said, "What's the matter?" He said, "We're waiting for you to open the curtain so we can see your painting." So this whole project was a collective of artists. Include this is your art, our art. You understand? To put this one piece together. Everybody had a hand in putting this one piece together to make it the whole.
That's it. With that, I want to thank both of you. Chuck, Amir, this has been an absolutely terrific conversation. I've learned a lot, and have even gained a greater appreciation of this special project, and thank you for making your imprint on Pittsburgh. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And as they say, must is, because must ain't don't sound right.
There you go. You get the last word, Amir.
Yes.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Dirt. I want to thank the team here at Point Park University, our great engineer Wayne, Anthony, and the team from Earth Day Pittsburgh. I'm Grant Ervin with S&B USA. Thank you for listening to The Dirt, and we will listen and check you out next time. Thanks much, and have a great day.